Thank you. The main job of the Tacoma Housing Authority is to provide high-quality, affordable housing to people who need it with a focus on the neediest. We do that in three main ways. The main way, judged by dollars spent and people served, is we help them pay the rent to private landlords on the private rental market. We serve about 4,400 households that way. We are also real estate developers, and we build, buy, and rebuild property that we then rent. We're the city's largest residential landlord. We serve about 1,500 households that way. And then we help nonprofits finance and develop their housing. I think of that as our shadow portfolio. We don't own it, we don't manage it, we finance it or develop it, and that's about another 1,000 households. That work is the preoccupation of the Tacoma Housing Authority. And the reason why it's important is because what's happening in Tacoma. If we were talking about food instead of housing, we would recognize widespread malnutrition with pockets of starvation. Talking about housing, we recognize that a full half of the renter population in Tacoma cannot afford where they're living. They're paying too much. The rent burden in Tacoma is too high. In Tacoma, the housing wage to afford a two-bedroom apartment is a full-time wage of $22 an hour. We also recognize a notable part of the population that does not have housing. This comes in the form of homeless single adults, homeless families with children, homeless children without families, unaccompanied youth. That shows in a number of ways, and it's also notable in the racial and gender disparities in that population. Pierce County is about 25% persons of color. The homeless population in Pierce County is about half. This is the damage that does. The damage to individuals, starting with youth and children, is it makes children sick and keeps them sicker longer. It exacerbates mental health. It causes developmental delays, educational impairments. For homeless youth, these are youth who make the plausible judgment that the streets are safer than home. And when they get to the streets, they're trafficked for sex, they sell sex for shelter and food, and they face a lifelong adulthood of impoverishment. It also weakens almost every other civic interest, or civic system: education, child welfare, public health, mental health, criminal justice, transportation policy, which brings us to our job. I told you what the guts of our work is, which is to provide housing. That's the easy part, in my judgment, because the world knows how to do that when it wants to. Doesn't want to too often, but it knows how to finance housing, design it, build it, manage it. The world knows how to design and do the paper shuffle for rental assistance programs. The world doesn't know nearly as much about the next part of our job, which is how do you spend those housing dollars to house someone, but at the same time get two other things done: to help them succeed, not just as tenants, but as our mission statement contemplates, as parents, students, wage earners, and builders of assets. And how do you spend those housing dollars, not just to house someone, but to help the city of ours succeed, and when it does so equitably, with a shared prosperity, so that it becomes a place that everyone can experience, as our mission statement contemplates, that is safe, vibrant, prosperous, attractive, and just. And the world doesn't know how to do that. And what I so admire about the people at THA and our partners is their effort to find it out, and when it works, it's a very good use of a housing dollar. In that use, when we build, we spend a lot of time thinking about design for three reasons. There's a pretty mature literature that says that if people live in a place that they understand to be attractive, they're more likely to value it and themselves. The second reason is because we try to set a high design bar. At THA, we tell ourselves that both ugly and lovely are contagious. And in a city without design standards, the power of example is important. The third reason we are interested in design is because part of our job as developers is to help the city grow into its higher density that its comprehensive plan calls for. And higher density always fizzes people up. We think of that as a design challenge. Part of our job is to show that higher densities can also look lovely. We spend a lot of time thinking about these places and making them fit for children, and in those design judgments, we consult children. These are some of our properties that you see here. That red chair was a mistake. Turns out that it was badly designed for safety purposes. At THA, we call that the red chair debacle. And we are trying to recoup it with a replacement. But we like the chair a lot. We wanted something that you wouldn't expect to see when you turn the corner. I'll conclude with what we're going to break ground on around the new year. The Arlington Drive campus for homeless youth, homeless children without families, and homeless young adults. At the corner of 38th and Portland, 3.5 acres, we're going to build a 12-bed crisis residential center for homeless 12 to 17-year-olds and 58 apartments for homeless 18 to 24-year-olds, 30% of whom will be parents of babies and toddlers. We will have supportive services wrapped around both these populations. This will be transforming in the assets in Pierce County to address what is now the third decade of a child welfare disaster. And it was planning for this was instructive for THA on where we fit in service to these young people who need services we don't provide, don't know how to provide, don't want to learn. So we do this with high-capacity partners who do know how to do that work. And our job is to provide the land, the real estate development capacity to get it built, the money to build it, the property management expertise to run it, rental assistance to give it an operating stream, and what might be the most important contribution of all, because these young people don't get it in other places, which is a warm welcome. And those are renderings of what it's going to look like. Arlington Drive Youth Campus. I've mentioned what it takes to do this work. I've referred to the 5 things. There are 6, but I've mentioned 5 of them. The real estate development expertise, the money to build, the property management expertise, the rental assistance to give it an operating stream, and the supportive services. Those 5 things are the preoccupation of the Tacoma Housing Authority. I didn't yet mention the 6th thing, and that's important, and it's really not in our expertise to provide. It's something that has to come from someplace else, and it's harder to presume upon, but it's absolutely necessary to do this work. It's necessary for Coffee Oasis to do its work, and all our partners, because real estate expertise, property management expertise, the money to build, the money to operate, and the supportive services are not enough. The 6th thing it needs is the communal insistence that the homelessness of young people is not tolerable. Thank you.